He lived alone with his baby until an Apache woman changed his fate. The house stood alone at the edge of the desert, where the road turned to dust and silence stayed longer than people. It was a small, worn place with faded paint and a roof that creaked when the wind passed over it. This was where he lived now, just a man and his baby, nothing else. Every morning began the same way. Before the sun fully rose, the baby would cry, soft at first, then louder. He would wake up immediately, even before the sound reached its peak. Sleep had become light and broken since the day his child was born. He would sit up slowly, rubbing his tired eyes, listening carefully to understand what the baby needed. Hunger. Always hunger at that hour. He moved through the small house quietly, as if silence could protect what little peace they had. He warmed the bottle, tested it the way he had learned, and held the baby close. The child was small, warm, and fragile, with tiny fingers that sometimes wrapped around his thumb. In those moments, his chest would tighten with feelings he could not name. Love mixed with fear, responsibility mixed with sadness. His wife used to do this. That thought came every time, even when he tried to push it away. She should have been here, standing beside him, smiling softly, telling him he was doing fine. Instead, there was only the quiet hum of the old refrigerator and the baby's slow drinking sounds. She had died the day the baby was born. The town still remembered that day clearly. People whispered about it at the store, at the gas station, even at church. A young woman gone too soon. A man left alone with a newborn. Tragedy wrapped in silence. After the funeral, people came by often. They brought food, clothes, kind words. He accepted everything politely but said little. Each visit made the house feel more crowded, more painful. After a while, the visits slowed. Life moved on for others. For him, it stayed frozen. He stopped going into town unless he had to. He took small jobs when he could, fixing fences, helping with repairs, unloading supplies. Jobs that did not require much talking. He did them for money, but also because working kept his mind busy. When he worked, the pain stayed quieter. At home, the baby was his world. Feeding, changing, rocking, soothing. He learned things no one taught him. How to tell hunger cries from tired ones. How to walk slowly across the room for hours because stopping would wake the baby. How to sit in the dark and feel time pass without moving. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, he would sit on the old couch with the baby asleep on his chest. The house would be dark except for the moonlight through the window. That was when the memories came strongest. His wife's laugh. The way she talked about the future. The plans they made. All of it ended too fast. He never cried loudly. Tears came quietly, sliding down his face while he stared into nothing. He felt he had no right to break down. The baby needed him strong, so he learned to hold everything inside. People in town saw him as distant. Some said he was cold. Others said he was still broken. No one really knew what to say to him anymore, and he didn't try to explain. Words felt useless. The desert around the house matched how he felt inside. Wide, empty, quiet. During the day, the heat pressed down heavily. At night, the cold reminded him how alone the world could be. Still, he stayed. Moving away felt like losing her all over again. One afternoon, the baby became restless. He cried longer than usual, his small face red, his body warm. Panic rose in the man's chest. He checked everything he knew to check. The baby would not calm down. His heart began to race. He wrapped the child carefully and drove toward town, faster than he usually did. At the small clinic he waited, holding the baby close. His hands shook slightly. He felt helpless in a way he had not felt since the day his wife died. The doctor said it was nothing serious, just a mild sickness. The baby would be fine. Relief washed over him, so strong his legs felt weak. He nodded, thanked the doctor, and stepped back outside. The sun was lowering, painting the sky with soft colors. He took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. That was when he noticed her. She stood a short distance away, near an old truck. She wore simple clothes, her dark hair pulled back. Her posture was calm, steady. She was watching him, not in a curious or judgmental way, but with quiet awareness. When their eyes met, she did not look away. He felt uncomfortable. He shifted the baby in his arms and turned slightly, hoping she would stop looking. Instead, she took a few steps closer, slowly, as if she did not want to scare him. "The baby okay?" she asked. Her voice was soft but confident. He hesitated. Talking to strangers was not something he liked anymore. Still, something about her tone made him answer. "Yes," he said. "Just scared me for a moment." She nodded as if she understood fear very well. "First child?" she asked. He nodded once. "You're doing fine," she said simply. There was no pity in her words, no sadness, just truth. That caught him off guard. Most people spoke to him carefully, like he might break. She didn't. She spoke to him like he was capable. He didn't know what to say, so he said nothing. The baby shifted in his arms and she smiled slightly, not at him but at the child. "He's strong," she said. "I can tell." He almost laughed at that. The baby was tiny, fragile. Yet hearing someone call him strong stirred something inside him. She stepped back, giving him space. "Take care," she said. And just like that, she turned and walked away. He watched her go, unsure why the moment stayed with him longer than it should have. He drove home slowly, the baby asleep again, the desert stretching out before him. That night, as he rocked the baby, he thought about her words. Simple words, honest words, they stayed in his mind. Life returned to its routine, but something felt slightly different, not better, not easier, just changed. A few days later, he saw her again. She stood near the road close to his house, waiting beside a box of supplies that had fallen from her truck. He stopped without thinking and helped her gather them. They worked in silence. It felt natural. "Thank you," she said when they were done. He nodded. "You live out here alone?" she asked. "Yes," he replied. "With the baby?" "Yes." She studied him for a moment. "That's not easy," she said. "No," he agreed. Again, no pity, just understanding. She introduced herself. He did the same. Their names felt simple in the open air. After that, she left. Days passed, then weeks. Sometimes he saw her in town, sometimes near the road. She never forced conversation, never asked questions he didn't want to answer. She just acknowledged him. A nod, a brief word, a look that said she noticed him. Slowly, without meaning to, he stopped feeling invisible. He still lived alone. He still carried his grief quietly. But now, somewhere in the wide desert, there was a presence that did not demand anything from him, only saw him as he was. And without realizing it, his carefully guarded life had begun to shift. The days after their short meetings felt strangely heavier, as if the silence around him had gained weight. He did not know why. Nothing in his life had truly changed. He still woke before sunrise, still fed the baby, still worked when he could, still returned to the same quiet house. Yet somewhere in his thoughts her calm voice stayed. He tried to ignore it. He told himself it was nothing, just a stranger, just a few polite words. Life had taught him not to expect more than what was directly in front of him. Expectations led to pain. He had learned that lesson deeply. One afternoon, the baby became restless again. Not sick this time, just uncomfortable, crying in short, tired bursts. He walked the floor slowly, rocking the child, whispering soft sounds he barely remembered learning. Outside, the wind moved through the dry grass, brushing against the walls of the house. A knock came at the door. He froze. No one came out this far unless they had a reason. His first thought was worry. His second was annoyance. He shifted the baby carefully and walked to the door. When he opened it, she stood there. She held a small cloth bag in her hands. Her expression was calm, as always, but there was a slight hesitation in her eyes, as if she knew she was crossing a line and was prepared to step back if needed. "I was in the area," she said. "I heard the baby had been sick last time. I thought this might help." She held the bag out gently, not pushing it toward him. He looked at it, then at her. His first instinct was to refuse. He did not like accepting help. Help always came with expectations, even when people said it didn't. "I'm fine," he said quietly. She nodded, accepting his words without argument. "All right," she replied. "Then I'll leave it here, in case you change your mind." She placed the bag on the small table by the door and stepped back. She did not try to come inside. She did not ask personal questions. She simply respected the space he clearly guarded. That confused him more than if she had insisted. After she left, he stood there for a long moment, the baby still fussing lightly. Finally, he picked up the bag. Inside were simple things: soft cloths, a mild herbal mixture with instructions written neatly, and a note with only a few words: "For comfort. Use only if needed. Nothing more." That night he used one of the cloths. The baby settled faster than usual, falling asleep with small, steady breaths. He sat there, staring at the child's face, feeling something unfamiliar. Gratitude, maybe, or relief. The next time he saw her, he thanked her. She smiled, small and brief. "That's enough," she said. "No debt." He watched her carefully this time. The way she moved with ease. The way she listened more than she spoke. She did not fill silence just to avoid it. That made him comfortable in a way he had not felt in a long time. They began to cross paths more often after that. Sometimes in town, sometimes near the road. She would ask about the baby. He would answer with short replies. Over time, the replies became slightly longer without him realizing it. She told him she helped at the clinic sometimes. She also helped elders in her community, bringing supplies, checking on them. She did not talk much about herself, and he did not push. One evening the baby grew warm again, not dangerously so, but enough to worry him. He tried everything he knew. The baby would not settle. Without thinking too deeply, he found himself driving toward her place. He did not know exactly why he trusted her. Maybe it was the calm in her eyes. Maybe it was the fact that she never tried to take control, never spoke over him, never made him feel small. When he arrived, she was surprised but not alarmed. She welcomed him inside, showed him a chair, and examined the baby carefully. Her movements were gentle, practiced. "It's all right," she said after a moment. "Just discomfort. Babies feel the world more strongly than we do." She showed him how to help ease it. She explained slowly, clearly, without making him feel ignorant. He followed every word closely. The baby calmed. He let out a breath he did not realize he had been holding. "You don't have to do this," he said quietly. "You don't owe me anything." She looked at him, her expression thoughtful. "Helping is not a debt," she said. "It's a choice." Those words stayed with him. After that night, something shifted between them, not dramatically, not suddenly, just enough to notice. She began to stop by more often, usually under simple reasons, dropping off supplies, checking on the baby, returning something he did not remember lending. He never asked her to stay. She never overstayed. Sometimes they spoke. Sometimes they sat in silence while the baby slept. The quiet did not feel heavy anymore. He learned small things about her. She had grown up close to the land. She valued listening more than speaking. She believed pain did not need to be displayed to be real. She carried her own losses, though she rarely named them. She learned small things about him, too. That he used to laugh more. That he liked fixing things with his hands. That he still talked to his wife sometimes in his thoughts. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low, he admitted something he had not said aloud before. "I'm afraid," he said, staring at the floor. She did not interrupt. "I'm afraid if I let things change, I'll lose control," he continued. "I barely survived losing her. I don't know if I can survive another loss." She listened carefully. Then she said, "Fear does not mean weakness, it means you remember." He looked at her then, really looked at her. For the first time since his wife's death, he felt understood without having to explain everything. Still, he kept his distance. He never invited her too close. He watched for signs of expectation, of pressure, of anything that might trap him emotionally. She gave none. One day, he overheard someone in town speaking poorly of her, words filled with misunderstanding and judgment. His chest tightened with anger he did not expect. He realized he cared about how others treated her, about her presence in his life. That realization scared him. He pulled back after that. He answered her less. He avoided eye contact. He convinced himself it was safer this way. She noticed. She did not confront him. She did not accuse him. She simply gave him space. That space hurt more than he expected. One evening, while feeding the baby, he realized something important. His child responded differently when she was around. The baby smiled more, slept easier. The house felt warmer, more alive. He stared at the walls, at the old furniture, at the quiet corners that once echoed with loss. He understood then that she had not come to replace anything. She had come to stand beside what already existed. The next time he saw her, he did not turn away. He spoke first. "Would you like to stay for tea?" he asked, his voice unsure but honest. She paused, then smiled gently. "Yes," she said, "I would." And in that simple moment, without promises or labels, the path ahead quietly opened, uncertain, fragile but real. The tea steamed gently between them, rising in thin lines that disappeared into the quiet air. The house felt different with her inside it. Not louder, not crowded, just warmer, like a place that had been waiting for breath. He noticed small things he had stopped noticing before. The way the light touched the wall, the soft sound of the baby breathing from the other room, the wind outside brushing past the door. They sat across from each other at the small table. He did not know what to say, and for once he did not feel rushed to find words. She held her cup with both hands and waited. Silence sat between them, calm and steady. "This is nice," she said finally, not looking around, not judging, just stating a fact. He nodded. "It's usually very quiet," she smiled slightly. "Quiet can be good." They drank their tea slowly. He felt the tension in his shoulders ease a little, as if his body recognized safety before his mind did. He realized how tired he was, not just from lack of sleep, but from holding himself together every moment of every day. After that evening, her visits became a gentle part of his life. There was no schedule, no expectation. Sometimes she came for a short while, sometimes longer. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they worked side by side in silence, washing dishes, folding clothes, fixing small things around the house. She never tried to take control of his life. She never told him what he should feel or do. When the baby cried, she helped only if he asked. When he looked unsure, she waited. That waiting mattered more than anything. One afternoon, the baby refused to nap. He walked the floor again and again, arms aching, mind tired. She watched quietly for a while, then stood and held out her arms. "May I?" she asked. He hesitated, then nodded. She took the baby gently, holding him close, rocking slowly. She hummed a low tune, soft and steady. The baby settled almost immediately. His small body relaxed, his breathing evened out. He felt a tight feeling rise in his chest, not jealousy, not fear. Something closer to relief. And something else deeper, trust. She handed the baby back when he was asleep. "You're doing well," she said, like before, simple, honest. Later that day, as the sun lowered, they sat outside. The desert glowed in warm colors. He found himself speaking without planning to. "I used to imagine this place full of noise," he said. "Laughter, a future." She listened. "When she died," he continued, "everything went quiet. I thought that was how it had to stay." She did not rush to respond. When she spoke, her voice was calm. Quiet does not mean empty. He thought about that for a long time. Over the next weeks, he learned more about her life, little by little. She spoke of her community with care, of elders she respected, of traditions that taught patience and strength. She did not speak badly of anyone, even when it would have been easy to do so. One evening, she shared something personal. "I lost people too," she said, staring out at the horizon. "Not all at once, some slowly, some through distance, some through choices that were not mine." He felt the weight of her words. Loss wore many shapes. "I stayed strong," she continued, "because I had to." "But strength doesn't mean you stop feeling," He nodded. He understood that deeply. As time passed, the baby grew stronger, more alert. He smiled more. He laughed softly when she made small sounds or faces. Watching that filled the man with something close to wonder. He had survived the hardest days. Somehow, without noticing, he had begun to live again. But fear did not disappear. It waited quietly. One night after she had gone, he sat alone, the baby asleep in his arms. He thought about how much her presence now mattered. How the idea of losing her made his chest tighten. That scared him. The next few days he pulled back again, not as sharply as before, but enough. Short answers, fewer invitations. He told himself he was protecting himself. She noticed, of course. One afternoon she came by and found him working outside. She did not mention the distance. She did not accuse him of anything. She simply stood beside him and helped, handing him tools, holding things steady. After a while she spoke. "You don't have to push me away to stay safe." He froze. "I can see fear," she continued. "I don't blame it, but I won't chase someone who believes caring is dangerous." He swallowed. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted. "I don't know how to let someone close without expecting pain." She met his eyes. "You don't have to know," she said. "You just have to be honest." That night he could not sleep. He replayed her words again and again. He realized something important. He had survived loss not by closing his heart, but by loving his child every day despite the fear. Love had not destroyed him. It had kept him alive. The next morning he did something small but brave. He drove to her place. When she opened the door, surprise crossed her face. He took a breath. "I don't want to push you away," he said. "I'm just scared." She studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Thank you for saying that." They sat together, talking more openly than before. He spoke about the day his wife died, about the moment everything changed. His voice shook. He did not hide it. She listened without interrupting. When he finished, he felt lighter, not healed, but heard. From then on, something settled between them, not a promise, not a label, just understanding. They shared more time together. She helped with the baby. He helped her with errands. They laughed occasionally, small, surprised laughs that felt like gifts. The town noticed. Some people watched with curiosity, some with judgment. He felt the pressure of eyes, of opinions. For the first time he felt anger rise, not for himself, but for her. One afternoon someone spoke poorly of her within his hearing. Without thinking, he spoke up. His voice was calm but firm. The words surprised even him. That night he told her what happened. She smiled softly. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to," he said. She reached out and touched his arm briefly. The contact was light, respectful, but it sent a quiet strength through him. As the weeks went on, the baby reached new milestones. First steady grip, first clear laugh. Each moment felt brighter because it was shared. One evening, as the sun disappeared and the desert cooled, he realized something important. His life was no longer defined only by what he had lost. It was also shaped by what he was building, slowly, carefully, with intention. He did not know where the path would lead. He did not know what the future would demand of him. But for the first time since grief had taken over his world, he felt ready to walk forward, not alone. And somewhere deep inside, he understood that fate had not rushed into his life. It had arrived quietly, with patience, waiting for him to be ready to see it. The quiet they had carefully built together began to face its first real test. Life, as it often does, did not wait for anyone to feel ready. One morning, a rumor spread through the small town. Someone had questioned why she spent so much time at his house. Some whispered that she had ulterior motives. Others judged her simply because she was different. It was nothing directly cruel, nothing that could harm anyone immediately, yet it pressed heavily on him. The words stung because they were not about him, they were about her. And suddenly, he realized just how much her presence mattered to him. He wanted to defend her. He wanted to say something, to set the record straight, but he hesitated. He was used to retreating, to handling everything quietly, alone. Speaking out felt foreign, dangerous. And still, The thought of someone hurting her reputation burned inside him. He felt the fear that had kept him distant before rise again, mingling with a fierce, protective instinct he could not ignore. She noticed the change in him immediately. During her next visit, he was quieter than usual. He avoided eye contact and gave short replies. The baby played nearby, oblivious to the tension that now filled the room. She sat patiently, watching him, understanding without words. "You're holding something," she said gently, breaking the silence. He shook his head, trying to dismiss it. "It's nothing." "It doesn't feel like nothing," she replied. "You're afraid of what people think, maybe, of what you might feel if things change too quickly." Her words hit him harder than he expected. She did not judge him. She did not demand an explanation. She simply stated what she saw. That was a kind of honesty he had rarely experienced. Over the next few days, he noticed how much he had begun to rely on her presence. Simple things, her laughter when the baby did something funny, the way she prepared meals with care, the calm steadiness of her hands, had become an unspoken part of his life. And yet, fear remained. The fear of losing her, the fear of letting someone in, the fear that opening his heart would end in pain. The turning point came when an accident happened at the house. A small fire started in the kitchen while he was preparing dinner. The baby was in his arms, and he froze for a moment, panic rising like a tide he could not control. She was there almost immediately, helping him carry the baby to safety and putting out the fire. Her calm efficiency saved them both. In the aftermath, they sat together on the porch, the night cool around them. His hands shook from adrenaline and fear. He felt exposed in a way he had not since his wife's death. She placed a hand gently on his shoulder, steadying him without words. "You're not alone," she said softly. "You don't have to carry everything by yourself." He looked at her, the weight of his years of grief pressing against him. He realized that he had spent so long protecting himself and his child from loss that he had not allowed anyone to share in their lives. Her presence had not replaced what he lost. She had simply shown him that life could be shared again. After that night, their bond deepened in a quiet but unmistakable way. They shared small moments, cooking, caring for the baby, talking quietly about the past, the present, and the uncertainties ahead. Each day built trust and connection, yet the fear of the unknown still lingered, a shadow that neither could ignore. Conflict arose not just from external pressures but from their own hesitations. He struggled with admitting how much he needed her, and she grappled with how to support him without overstepping. Every small disagreement or miscommunication carried more weight than it would have in ordinary circumstances. They learned slowly that love and trust required patience, understanding, and courage, qualities that had been forged in their own individual struggles before they met. One afternoon, he walked into town to pick up supplies and overheard someone making assumptions about their relationship. His first instinct was to retreat, as he often did. But this time, he felt a surge of resolve. He realized that letting the world dictate their lives would mean giving up the future he was beginning to hope for. When he returned home, she was waiting with the baby asleep in her arms. He took a deep breath, his heart pounding. "We have to stop letting others' opinions scare us," he said. She looked at him with steady eyes. "We can choose how we let the world affect us. We cannot control everything, but we can protect what matters." He nodded, feeling the truth in her words. That evening, they worked together to repair a fence in the yard, their hands brushing occasionally, each touch a silent promise. The desert sun set behind them, painting the sky with warm colors that reflected the slow, careful rebuilding of their lives. Over time, the baby reached new milestones, rolling over, sitting up, babbling sounds that made them both laugh. Each moment became a shared joy, a symbol that their life together was growing stronger despite fear and uncertainty. He learned to appreciate the little things, the softness of the baby's hair, the way her laughter filled the quiet house, the calm steadiness she brought into every day. Evenings were the hardest, when silence returned and he was left alone with his thoughts. Yet now he did not feel the crushing weight of grief as he once had. Instead, he felt a cautious optimism, a fragile hope that life could continue slowly with care. They began to talk more openly about their fears. He admitted his lingering pain from losing his wife, and she shared her own experiences of loss and resilience. In these conversations, they found mutual understanding, a recognition that each had survived hardship and could now survive together. The turning point came one night when the baby slept soundly, and they sat on the porch watching stars emerge. He realized that the presence of someone who cared did not diminish his strength, it enhanced it. She did not erase his grief, nor did she replace his past. She simply offered companionship, support, and the possibility of joy again. With each passing day, they faced challenges, gossip, judgment, and internal fears, but together they began to redefine what family meant. They understood that love required risk, that opening their hearts meant embracing both vulnerability and courage. By the end of that season, the man recognized a profound truth. He had not just survived loss. He had begun to live again, and this life, shared with someone who understood, respected, and cared for him, was shaping a future he had once thought impossible. The world outside their small desert home still carried uncertainties, but inside, they found a rhythm of life, trust, and shared responsibility. The baby thrived, laughter filled the house more often, and the quiet moments between them carried a strength that only time and understanding could create. The path ahead remained uncertain. Challenges would come, both from the outside world and from within their hearts. Yet the man now knew that fear, though natural, did not have to dictate his choices. With her by his side, he could face the world again, confident that they could navigate whatever came together. And in that knowledge, he finally began to feel the first true stirrings of peace, hard-earned, delicate, but deeply real. A life that once seemed broken was now slowly, carefully, finding its way toward wholeness. The days began to settle into a rhythm that felt both familiar and new. The desert wind whispered through the sparse trees and across the sandy ground outside their small home, carrying a quiet sense of possibility. The man had grown used to the routines of caring for his baby, but now, with her presence woven naturally into each day, the routines no longer felt lonely. Instead, they felt shared, meaningful, and, in a way, hopeful. Morning light poured gently through the windows as he fed the baby, rocking him slowly while she moved about the kitchen, preparing a simple breakfast. They worked side by side, often without speaking, yet the silence between them was not heavy. It was comfortable, like a thread connecting them, holding their shared life together. He began to notice the small details, the tilt of her head when she smiled, the way her hands moved gracefully as she stirred the food, and the soft hum she sometimes made when she thought no one was listening. The baby's laughter became a constant soundtrack in the house. Small, joyful sounds that made the man forget the sharp edges of the grief he had carried for so long. He watched as the baby reached for her hand, giggling when she lifted him slightly into the air. In these moments, he realized that he had never experienced such a pure form of happiness. It was a happiness built not on perfection, but on the small, steady presence of love and care. They spent afternoons outside whenever possible, teaching the baby the feel of the warm earth beneath tiny feet, the rough texture of rocks, and the gentle touch of wind on skin. They would sit on the porch in the evenings, watching the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and red. The man sometimes found himself speaking quietly, sharing thoughts he had never said aloud to anyone about his fears, his past, and most unexpectedly, his hopes for the future. She listened patiently, never interrupting, never judging, only offering the comfort of presence and understanding. One day, a challenge came from the outside world. A dispute over property lines threatened their peace, drawing the man reluctantly back into town. He felt the familiar tension of confrontation rise, the old fear of being judged or failing once again. She accompanied him quietly, offering reassurance through small gestures, a gentle touch on his arm, a steadying presence beside him. With her support, he found the courage to speak calmly and clearly, resolving the conflict without anger or regret. For the first time, he realized that facing challenges with someone by his side did not make him weak, it made him stronger. As months passed, their bond deepened in ways that were quiet but undeniable. She became more than a friend or helper, she became a partner in the truest sense. He learned to trust her judgment, to lean on her for support without fear of judgment. He shared stories of his childhood, of dreams he had once abandoned, and she, in turn, shared memories of her family and community. Each exchange built a foundation of mutual respect and understanding, stronger than anything either had experienced before. The man began to see the transformation not just in himself, but in the baby as well. The child thrived in the warmth of their shared lives, his laughter growing louder, his curiosity more pronounced. Every small milestone, first steps, first words, first attempts at drawing with tiny fingers, felt like a victory shared by all three of them. They celebrated quietly, with smiles, gentle claps, and soft words of encouragement, knowing that each moment was precious and fleeting. One evening, after the baby had finally fallen asleep, they sat together on the porch, the night sky glittering with countless stars. The man took a deep breath, feeling the cool desert air fill his lungs. "I used to think I could never feel happiness again," he said softly, almost to himself. She turned to look at him, her expression calm and understanding. "Happiness isn't about forgetting the past," she replied. "It's about learning to carry it with you without letting it weigh you down." He nodded, letting the words sink in. He realized that she had not come into his life to erase his grief or replace what he had lost. She had come to walk beside him, to help him see that life could continue, full and meaningful even after heartache. Their connection had grown slowly, patiently, and with care, and now it stood as a testament to resilience, trust, and the quiet power of shared lives. As the weeks turned into months, the man made choices he had once thought impossible. He invited her family to visit, slowly bridging the gap between his life and the community that had once seemed distant and intimidating. Together, they celebrated small holidays, shared meals with neighbors, and opened their home in ways that felt natural, not forced. The baby, now older and more active, became the center of these gatherings, his laughter and energy drawing smiles from everyone present. In the midst of this growing life, the man found himself dreaming again. He imagined futures where the baby grew up surrounded by love, where he and she continued to face challenges together, and where their home remained a sanctuary of warmth, patience, and understanding. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to hope without fear. One day, as they walked together along the dusty road outside their home, he stopped and looked at her. "I don't know what the future holds," he said, "but I know I want to face it with you." She smiled, reaching for his hand, her fingers intertwining with his. "And I will," she said simply. "No matter what comes, we face it together." The seasons changed, bringing new colors, new winds, and new challenges. Yet with every passing day, the foundation they had built together, trust, understanding, and shared care for the baby, grew stronger. They learned to face both joy and difficulty with patience, never rushing, never forcing, but always moving forward, side by side. In the end, life had given them something rare and beautiful, a family defined not by circumstance alone, but by choice, care, and love. The man understood that fate had not simply brought her into his life to change it. It had given him the chance to grow beyond his grief, to embrace life fully, and to create a home filled with laughter, understanding, and hope. And as he watched the baby play in the warm light of the late afternoon, hearing the soft wind through the trees and feeling her hand gently brush against his. He knew, truly knew, that life, once broken, could be whole again. They had found not just survival, but joy, connection, and a future filled with quiet, lasting happiness. From that moment onward, he no longer saw his life as one of loss and loneliness. He saw it as a journey of healing, growth, and love, shared with someone who had come into his life not to replace the past, but to help him live fully in the present, and to step into the future together. The home, once quiet and lonely, now rang with laughter, gentle conversations, and the rhythmic steps of a small child discovering the world. The man understood that this was more than recovery. It was life renewed, love rediscovered, and a family forged through patience, courage, and trust. And under the vast desert sky with the stars shining above, they sat together in silence that spoke volumes. Their lives intertwined. They faced the unknown not with fear but with hope, knowing that whatever came, they would face it together. The man realized that true happiness was not about forgetting pain, but about embracing life with someone who understood, supported, and shared the journey, every step of the way.